Nobody expected Suga to say it. The concert was almost over. The energy in Stanford Stadium was at that specific kind of high that only exists in the final moments of a sold-out show, when everyone in the building knows they are watching something they will never forget. And then, in the middle of what should have been a routine stage conversation between members, Suga said something that made the entire audience stop. He called Google creepy because of Jimin. And the way he said it, the pause before the word, the laugh that came after, the way he looked, made thousands of fans immediately reach for their phones, not because it was shocking, but because something in that moment felt like it was giving away more than Suga probably intended. What exactly did he mean? And why did that one word send ARMY into a spiral that lasted for days? This channel is for the ARMY who notice things. Not the things that make headlines, the things that happen in the 2 seconds before the headline, the micro-expressions, the offhand comments, the moments that feel small until you place them next to something older and suddenly they feel enormous. If that is the kind of fan you are, you will want to stay for the last part of this video, because the most interesting layer of this moment is not the joke itself, it is everything underneath it. May 19, 2026, Stanford Stadium, Palo Alto, California. The third and final night of BTS's sold-out 3-concert run in the Bay Area, their first performances in Northern California since Oakland Arena in 2018. Over 50,000 people inside, thousands more gathered outside the stadium just to hear the sound carry through the walls. By this point in the evening, the formal structure of the setlist had wound down, and the members were in that looser, more candid mode that longtime fans know well, the part of the concert where the scripted energy gives way to something that feels genuinely unplanned, where the real version of who these 7 people are when they are together starts to show through. And it was in that space, that unguarded end-of-night space, that one of the members mentioned, almost casually, that Jimin's name had been one of the most searched terms on Google that week. What happened next lasted only a few seconds, but those few seconds are what we are here to talk about. Suga's reaction was immediate, and it was layered in a way that took most people a moment to fully process. He did not react with pride. He did not react with the kind of polished enthusiasm that artists are expected to perform when they hear good news about their bandmates. He laughed, genuinely, not performatively, and said that Google knowing that much about someone was kinda creepy. 2 words, said with a laugh, said and then moved past almost immediately. And yet those 2 words were clipped, shared, screenshotted, and analyzed across every platform within hours. The initial reaction from fans was mostly delight. The phrase "kinda creepy" landing in Suga's very specific, very dry delivery was exactly the kind of offhand humor that makes Yoonbin interactions so consistently entertaining to watch. It was funny, it was unexpected, it was very him. But then fans started watching the clip more carefully, and the detail that made everything feel different was not the word itself, it was the look on Suga's face in the half-second before he said it. There is a very specific expression that Suga makes when something genuinely surprises him, not the performed surprise of variety show content, but the real kind, the kind where his eyes do something fractionally different from what his mouth is doing. Fans who have been studying his expressions for years recognized it immediately in this clip. He was not just making a joke, he was processing something. The joke was the way he chose to process it out loud. And what he was processing, if you follow the logic of the moment, was the scale of it. The fact that in a week where BTS was performing sold-out concerts at Stanford Stadium, in a week filled with historic news and global coverage, the individual name that cut through all of it at the search level was Jimin's. Not BTS, not the tour, Jimin specifically. And Suga, in his very particular way of engaging with information that genuinely moves him, responded to that fact by calling it creepy, which, if you know Suga, is one step away from calling it remarkable. That detail alone would have been enough to keep the conversation going for a few hours, but then fans started pulling something else into the frame. A clip from 2023, Suga's August D-Day solo concert in New Jersey. Jimin was in the audience that night, not as a guest performer, not as a featured collaborator, just as someone who came to sit in the crowd and cheer for his bandmate. And when the camera found him and the audience reacted with the kind of noise that briefly drowned out the concert, Suga stopped his own show to note with theatrical exasperation that everyone was supposed to be looking at him. The joke was the same energy, the delivery was the same. The slightly too dry, slightly too aware comment that functioned as a humor wrapper around something that was, under the surface, actually carrying quite a lot of weight. Because in 2023, what Suga was acknowledging, jokingly, in his own language, was that Jimin's presence had a gravitational pull that even a solo stage was not fully immune to. And in 2026, at Stanford, what Suga was acknowledging, again jokingly, again in his own language, was that Google's data had confirmed that most people in the room already knew intuitively. The pattern between those two moments, separated by 3 years, is not a coincidence, it's a consistency. And it says something about how Suga actually sees Jimin that goes well beyond what he would ever say directly. Here is where the emotional weight of this moment starts to reveal itself more fully. Suga is not someone who expresses things in the way most people expect emotional expression to look. He is consistently one of the most observant people in any room he occupies, and consistently one of the least likely to translate that observation into the kind of warm, explicit language that reads easily on camera. What he does instead, what he has always done, is comment, sideways, with humor that has more layers in it than it initially appears to. When he called Google creepy, he was not dismissing Jimin's achievement. He was doing the opposite. He was marking it, acknowledging it in the only register that feels natural for him, the register of ironic understatement, where the bigger the actual feeling is, the more it gets compressed into something that sounds like almost nothing. Fans who have been watching Suga for years understand this intuitively, which is why the clip spread the way it did, not because it was shocking, but because it was deeply recognizable. And the particular fans who recognized it most were the ones who remembered the Suchwita episode where Jimin sat across from Suga and admitted that Suga was the first person who ever told him he could be a singer with a unique voice, who told him he was good, who said it out loud before anyone else did. That happened before any of this, before Like Crazy, before 2.4 billion streams on Spotify, before Stanford Stadium, before Google had any reason to track anyone's name at all. And the person who said it then is the same person who, standing on a stage at the end of a sold-out show 13 years later, called it kinda creepy that the world had finally caught up to what he already knew. That is when the conversation stopped being funny and started being something else entirely. Because when you hold those two moments next to each other, the quiet trainee-era observation and the public stage joke 13 years later, something clicks into place that is very hard to articulate, but very easy to feel. Suga has been watching Jimin the whole time, not in an overwhelming way, not in a way that removes Jimin's own agency or diminishes his own journey, but in the quiet, consistent way that someone watches a person they genuinely believe in, from before the world believed it, all the way through to the moment the world's largest search engine is keeping track of his name by the week. And his way of saying that, the only way that feels true to who he is to call it creepy, to make it a joke, to let the humor carry the weight so he does not have to carry it in any register that would feel foreign to him. There is something genuinely rare about this kind of dynamic, and the reason it keeps generating conversation, the reason that a 2-word comment from the end of a concert in California spread across every platform and was still being discussed days later, is that fans recognize rarity when they see it. Most relationships between public figures that get labeled and analyzed and celebrated by fandoms are relationships that perform for the camera. They exist in the space between what is real and what reads well on screen, and over time it becomes very difficult to tell where one ends and the other begins. What makes Suga and Jimin different, what has always made them different, is that their dynamic seems to actively resist the camera. Their moments are not built for wide shots. They are built for the people who are paying close enough attention to catch something that was not meant to be caught.
A word said with a specific kind of laugh at the end of a sold-out concert, a look that lasts less than 2 seconds before the show moves on, a joke that sounds like almost nothing until you place it next to a quiet conversation from 13 years ago. And suddenly, it is not almost nothing anymore. So here is the question I want to leave with you. Do you think Suga knew, in that moment, on that stage, exactly how much was underneath what he was saying? Or is that the kind of thing that only becomes visible in retrospect, when fans slow it down and place it next to everything that came before? Because I genuinely do not know, and I think that uncertainty is part of what makes the moment so interesting to sit with. What I do know is this: the fans who caught it were not reading too much into it, they were reading the right amount. They just happened to be fluent in a language that Suga has been speaking, in his own very specific register, for a very long time. If you noticed something in that clip that this video did not cover, or if you have a Yoonmin moment from the Anaring tour that you think deserves the same kind of attention, write it in the comments. The sharpest observations about BTS consistently come from the people who watch the closest. Until the next one, take care of yourselves. And as always, Purple You.